Hello. Hi, everybody. So this is a Pussiful Real Talk, and today's guest is Marga. We are really excited to talk about desire. Uh, oh my God, I really needed to say this word.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I really needed to say this. And so there we'll talk about desire and taboo, some
Mhm.
our personal experiences, and I guess we will share our experiences from personal lives.
Yeah.
And this is really a place for sharing. And also, Marga will talk about what she learned or what she teaches, and also what she shares with her fellow woman in Netherlands,
hmm
which is really exciting. So, Marga, how do you introduce yourself recently?
Yes. I'm so happy to be here. So, Hannah, thank you so much for inviting me and
Oh, thank
doing
you
the
so
talk
much.
together. It's just so much fun. And indeed, like you said, it's so good to talk about desire. So,
Mm,
so a bit about myself. I'm a sex, intimacy, and a relationship coach, and I have my
yeah.
own business, Turn on the Netherlands. And I give
Mm,
lectures. I do one-on-one training and coaching. I do workshops. There are different
mm,
modalities I teach: tantra, orgasmic meditation, kink, BDSM. So open relating, polyamory. So I have a whole wide range of experiences in this field, and I'm really passionate about people experiencing being intimately connected,
mm,
and that goes beyond sex and intimacy only. This is really about
mm,
experiencing life intimately, experiencing your connections intimately. And
mm.
through that, I am, yeah, I'm just working around and inviting people to explore that for themselves. Yeah.
Yes. So you are creating deeper connection between people and also between one person and with their body and with their sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
It's great that you say it. It's a mix of body work. So
yes.
really feeling your body, being able to connect to your body, staying present and conscious, and
Mm,
the connection with another human. So the
mm,
interconnection part. So it's a connection to yourself and connection
mm.
to others, and it's an embodiment and also a cognitive thing. So it's a
Yes.
combination of all. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my favorite topic.
Good.
Embodiment, yes.
Yes. Why is
Give me
it so
more.
favorite for you? What makes it so good for you?
Um, I like feeling my
Mm,
body,
mm,
and recently, just like because I had a lots of mental work. I
mm.
mean, I had to use my brain a lot, which
Yeah.
is quite
Yeah.
tiring. Yes, and I see how I rediscover how important this work is and
Mm,
how valuable it is
mm.
to create the or cultivate this connection with our body.
Yeah.
I just cannot say how much is important,
Yeah.
really. How I so we knew each other since like maybe 2017 or something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but I never really heard that how you started this work.
Mm.
What
Yeah.
was the entry point?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of personal growth and development work myself, right? I've been working
Mm,
as a coach and trainer for over 15 years
mm,
in personal development and coaching people in that. And I did lots of improv and theater and I guided people there. But there was
mm.
this area of my life, which was sex and intimacy, that I kind of ignored, right? I always
Yes.
was like, it didn't work for me. I felt frustrated and sad about it and it didn't feel good for me. But I was always like, I have other things I really like and that is just not important to me.
Mm,
Until I got to a point, and I think that's about 8 years ago now, or maybe even nine, that I was like,
yes.
who am I fooling? I was, the
Sorry, who am
relationship I
I?
was, say again?
Who am I fooling?
Fooling, like, right? I was fooling myself. I had to get kind of honest with myself. I was in a
Mm,
relationship, and the
mm,
relationship ended, and in that relationship we did not had any intimate, well, not the sexual satisfaction and intimacy that we both really liked and enjoyed. We didn't know
mm,
how to speak about that. We didn't know how to
mm,
communicate it and actually create connection in a way that really worked for the both of us.
mm,
And and at the end of that relationship I was like, you know what, I'm kind of done with pretending I don't care anymore. And so from
yes,
that moment, I kind of told myself, you know what, I'm gonna discover this. So I
mm,
started to try different things. I started to different courses, different
mm,
practices. So different things
mm,
came on my path, like orgasmic meditation, which made a big difference for me in that embodiment practice that we just talked
yes,
about.
yes,
And other things that I started to try, like bondage,
mm,
tantra, and some things I really enjoyed, some things I really didn't like. But it was through
mm,
that discovery I started to understand my own body and how it actually all
mm,
started. It came from my own need. Like, you know what? I am pretty lost in this area myself. It seems like
mm,
everybody has it handled. I mean, nobody in my area, in my life, was like, oh my God, I don't know how this works. Everybody seemed to have the amazing intimate life, and I was the only stupid one, right? I really
mm,
felt like that. Until
mm,
I started to engage in this and look, and I discovered nobody has it handled, nobody
yes,
understands the thing, and we're
yes,
all trying to figure it out and make it work. So,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
that's how that started. Yeah.
yes, yes. So it was really the end of one intimate relationship, and you decided that you started to care.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Right. Exactly that. I started to
Mm,
care about my own pleasure and my own life
mm, mm,
and the relationships I was in because I knew like I'm gonna take this to my next relationship. If I don't tackle this,
mm.
this will show up in my next relationship. You know,
Yes,
it's like not that it
yes.
was my partner's fault, so to speak. It was
Mm,
like there was a dynamic that an ability I was not, I felt I was incompetent in
mm.
communicating about intimacy and feeling my own body. I was like, I don't even know what I want. How can I
Yes,
then create it with my partner in a way that feels good?
yes, yes,
So that was
yes.
really, I was like, I'm not gonna repeat that. I was really
Mm,
clear, like, I'm not gonna repeat that pattern
mm,
in my life
mm,
anymore. I'm gonna
mm,
find out a new way.
mm.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I went to the orgasmic meditation. It was, I don't know how, I don't think it was a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
It was also around the end of my first marriage.
Mm.
And I still talk about my ex-husband like, um, he was really willing. He was really willing to learn, and he was very curious and
Mm.
open-minded guy. So it was him who brought the orgasmic meditation into our relationship. And at
Mm.
that time, I was like, that sounds a little bit weird. No, thank you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm fine. Like, no,
Yeah.
thank you. And he continued this activity, and I actually came back about 7 or 8 months later
Mm.
because I was just tired of trying alone.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
whatever the meditation is, it was always like maybe sitting in the Zen temple, like I was sitting in front of the white wall for all
Yeah.
day long, kind of very alone practice.
Mm.
And I felt like, okay, I was finally humble enough to try something I could do with somebody else. And
Mm.
I was way too arrogant to before reaching that point. I was really like, no, I'm fine.
I so
I'd
get
rather
that.
not go there if I can
Yeah.
avoid.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It was a really big changing point for me. Mm.
Mm.
And if you're if you talk about, just because we are talking about the orgasmic meditation,
Yeah.
um, how did you find it?
Oh, that was such a funny story. I was at a course. I was at a
Yes.
training which had nothing to do with intimacy and sexuality, and I was at a break, and this lady was standing next to me, and she was glowing. She was a super alive woman, and we started to chat. We were having
Oh
our
my God.
lunch,
Mm.
and she kind of mentioned she did meditation, and I did meditation at the time. It wasn't orgasm meditation.
Mm.
So I said like, oh great, what kind of meditation is it? And this is what she literally said. She said, it's a meditation where your clitoris gets to be stroked for 15 minutes, and then you're
Mm.
free to go. And I was like, what, like, between one bite and having a conversation about meditation, suddenly the word clitoris fell and orgasmic, and I was like, what is this? So she kind of grabbed my attention there, and I was
Yes.
really, my first thought was like, that sounds interesting. And then
Mm.
my second thought was like, no, where's the catch? Right? For
Mm.
me, see, at that time, the idea of just feeling something
Mm.
and not having to do anything, right?
Mm.
That was unheard
Mm.
of. Because in
Yes.
intimacy and sex, I was always busy pleasing my partners because I did not know how to communicate what I needed and wanted. So
Mm.
I didn't even know what I wanted. So saying it out loud was something impossible for me. And
Yes.
my coping mechanism was just put all my attention on my partner.
Mm.
And
Mm.
whenever they
Mm.
would give attention to me, because I had sweet partners, I was
Mm.
kind of bookkeeping. Like I was keeping
Yes.
track of, oh, they
Mm.
give me something, then I need to give something back. Oh, now they give
Yes.
me something, I need to give something back. So there
Yes.
was
Yes.
always this focus there, out there,
Mm.
and not
Mm.
here. So
Mm.
when
Mm.
she
Mm.
shared about the meditation, it got me really curious because at that time I was already in that mode of, intimacy. I want to discover more about this. So when she shared about the practice, for me
Mm.
it was a moment of, let's try this because this might actually work for me. Although
Mm.
I was
Mm.
super nervous, obviously, like,
Mm.
stepping into a practice I didn't know, but that's how it
Yes.
started. This lady shared with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really just like magnet attraction with one
Yeah.
person, and it kind of ring the bell.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Mm.
exactly that. I was intrigued by it. Like, what is this? This sounds really like something that could make a difference for me. And at the same
Mm.
time, it scared me because I was
Yes.
kind of, it would take something, a new way of behaving for me, like a
Mm.
developing new habits that I had no clue how to do that. So
Yes.
that was really scary. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I admit that the receiving is scary.
Mm.
Yes. I didn't really grow up. I don't know. I sometimes I wonder, is there any woman who grew up with a with a mother who is like so super good at receiving things? I sometimes wonder when I
I
talk
don't
about
know.
my story.
Right? I would like to hear that. If there's anybody listening to this and who grew up like that, we'd love to hear, right? That you
Yes.
had a mother who taught you how to receive gracefully and,
Mm.
and yeah, be really open for receiving and being nourished by that. I think that's,
Yes. Oh, that's really beautiful.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
And also for me that that whole series of nourishment and receiving and putting attention on me or on my body
Mm,
and on my sex, it was really a very slow process for me.
yeah,
And I always feel like this is something more like swimming. Like we cannot really know how it feels like before we jump into the pool. We
mm,
can talk about how we can
yeah,
float, but it is something difficult to experience before really we feel inside our body what does that deeper receiving feels like, or what is the nourishment feels like when we don't really have experience, or like we didn't really have an environment to allow that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And I really appreciate that you continue this work to create that environment.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. Same for you, right? I'm so grateful that I walked on my path and I found people who provided the space in the different
Mm.
practices I did where I could explore and felt safe to do new things that
Mm.
took me out of my comfort zone. And it is like swimming, right? You can tell somebody like the water feels wet, you'll feel
Yeah.
floaty and lighter in your body, but your movement will be a bit slower because you're through water. And then you can kind of get a mental picture, but the moment you jump into the water, it's the experience itself. And I
Yes.
love that analogy about, in order to really start to understand your own body, your own desires, your own pleasure, you actually
Mm.
do practices and start swimming. Because
Yes.
I know a lot of people who have a mental idea or read books, right? Books are great and
Yes.
talking about it, but
Mm.
that doesn't give you a visceral experience of
Mm.
feeling and
Yes.
discovering what's there to discover for you and
Mm.
dealing with what you need to deal with,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Because what I found was that the reason I did not put attention on my body was, and my sensuality and my desires, was the moment I did, I
Mm.
got confronted with feeling stuff that I'd rather not feel.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm. Mm.
besides pleasure and fun and thing to discover for myself that I did, I also had
Yes.
to deal with emotions that I found difficult to deal with.
Mm.
So
Mm.
my coping was
Mm.
to put attention on others so I didn't have to look here. So
Yes.
through practices, I also got to clean up and
Mm.
navigate and learn how to feel it all.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And through
Mm.
feeling it all and being able to let all that energy move through my body, whether emotion that was or other sensations, that started to give me access to
Mm.
being here in my body,
Mm.
present with all of
Mm.
it. And
Mm.
that allows for great intimacy and pleasure and all that exploration to be really fun.
Mm.
But that was part of that learning I had to do, right? To
Yes.
be able
Yes.
to sit with all of it. Yeah.
Mm. Do you have any example of like something you try to avoid feeling, something you try to avoid feel?
Oh, yeah. Um, vulnerable.
Mm.
Being vulnerable, like actually being open about what I wanted. I remember
Mm.
a silly example where I wanted to ask for a pillow that would support my body. It
Mm.
was one of the practices I did, and I realized I didn't dare to ask for the pillow because I was afraid my partner at that time would think I would be too much. I would
Mm.
rather get my own pillow and manage my own stuff and
Mm.
make sure everything was handled than actually ask him, could you get a
Mm.
pillow for me? And
Yes.
it might be a simple, really small thing, but I was
Yes.
so afraid just to be vulnerable because he might said no. I
Mm.
might
Mm.
be
Mm.
rejected and I would feel so embarrassed for asking something for myself.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So yeah, just that vulnerableness and the fear of being rejected really gripped me. And
Yes.
I had to practice asking really simple things in the beginning, like a
Mm.
pillow,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Before I
Mm.
dared just, that was a process of like practicing asking for what I wanted. Small things in the beginning until bigger, 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 until I got comfortable getting
Mm.
yeses and
Yes.
nos, right? That
Yes.
I was okay with. A person can answer a yes or a no, but I was free with requesting.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's
Mm.
still a practice, by the way. When I have vulnerable
Yes.
requests, I rather
Yes.
avoid
Yes.
asking. Yeah.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you
That's
relate?
so
Like, is
true.
there anything you can see in that?
Yeah, there are many things I try to avoid.
All right. Yeah.
There are really, really many things I try to avoid to feel or
Mm.
hmm. It was just so confronting to think like I can have that.
Mm.
So in one of my pattern or things I work on always is that if I want to have that, I will need to work for that.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
like it's very. I don't know how that much simple thing can be so difficult for me. But to be honest, there I think there is some part of me thinks that the uh try to refuse or like go different ways or like try to think like there is a different way to get it rather
Hmm.
than walk through it,
Right.
you know, like 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 you said that if you want to have a pillow and you can ask for a pillow or you can buy a pillow, and there is some part of me says like, oh, I kind of wish that pillow magically appears, but I just, if I can avoid the humility of asking it, that kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
mind is there. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it strange how we're so afraid to ask? And it's
mm,
not strange if you look at how we're brought up. is not strange at all. These habits that we have in connection all come from growing up and hearing, for example, don't ask for what you want. You
Yes.
know, there's this expression in Dutch where you say, you know, children who ask will not get it. There's an
Really?
expression we have. Yes, it's an expression in the Netherlands. It's like, I can say it in Dutch. Kinderen die vragen worden overgeslagen. I mean, you won't get it. But the thing is, it basically
That
says,
sounds mean.
well, it is, right? It basically teaches you that if you ask for what you want, you
Wow.
don't get it. Right? You need
Wow.
to be humble and acceptive of what you get and be
Mm.
grateful for what gets your way, but requesting something, no way. Right? And
Wow.
it's not taught overly, but
Yes.
and I'm sure you can relate to that and other people too that you know,
Mm.
you were taught as a kid, you know, if you asked too
Mm.
much, you were shut up. You were shut down.
Mm.
It's like, don't ask too
Mm.
much.
Mm.
So we, from a young age, learn not to say. And then we are
Wow.
surprised that we then cannot ask for what we need and hold our boundaries and our desires when we are
Mm.
adults.
Mm. Mm. That's really shocking because my image of Dutch people were so honest and direct. I
Mm.
couldn't imagine that there's that kind of saying.
Right. Well, yeah, we're
Yes.
all human, right? I mean, we're direct, but we have our humanity of
I see.
dealing with
I
stuff in life.
see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any experience around the jealousy or havingness with other women?
So feeling
Do you
jealous
I
of.
mean, the context is like, the example I like use is when we are queuing at the airport, for example,
Hmm.
and we are all waiting for our passport to be stamped.
Hmm.
And suddenly there is on the backside, someone says like, "Oh, my flight is leaving really soon. Can I jump on the queue?" And then other people who are waiting in front of that person say, "Oh, me too, my flight too, my flight too." And like some people who didn't really allow themselves to have that um, courage to say that can I jump front on the
Hmm.
queue? They
Hmm.
get more frustrated because they didn't allow that for themselves.
Yeah.
So this is having this issue between different person when someone sees that other person has what they want,
Yeah.
but that person is containing or like trying to step down their desires, then it gets really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
uncomfortable is the most diplomatic way I can put.
I think so. Yeah, that's very subtle. You say it uncomfortable. I'd say we get
Mm.
envious, frustrated, resigned, and nasty with each other. If I'm
Yes,
honest,
that's more correct words.
right? If I look at
Yes.
myself and I see, for example, a woman that is, in my eyes, successful or has something
Mm.
that I really want, or
Mm.
she's doing something that I'm really envious about in a sense, like I wish I could do that, but I don't have the courage, like you said, to do that.
Mm.
Boy, like automatically, I'll try to put her down, right?
Mm.
I'm not
Mm.
proud of that, but automatically I would be like I said, nasty in a way that I will find something to compare myself with, and I'm either
Yes.
better or either lower, or there is some circumstance or some
Mm.
explanation
Mm.
for 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 not being with that uncomfortable sensation, and to
Yes.
kind of finding
Yes.
the blame outside me,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's pretty ugly if you look at
Yeah,
it
that's
as
really.
a habit that we have,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So yeah, I have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really have a strong habit around that, and
Mm.
and I I think that's how I think. I don't really know how other people thinks about me, but I think that I look nicer on the surface than actually I am. So,
Yeah.
so just I have some image of myself like trying to like I try to like uh not reveal all that nastiness inside of me, but I have very really competitive side.
Mm.
It runs very deep,
Yeah.
and it took very long time to feel safe about about one thing, and also what other people have is not really my business, or like it's a separate thing. It
Yeah.
really took some very long time to teach myself that, and I'm still learning about the in the relationship of desire. And when I compare myself about just the things that I get envious and I get dark.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. And but what's so beautiful about what you share, I think, is that you're conscious about it. Like it's an automatic thing that shows up, right? It's not that we
mm,
control not feeling those feelings. They will
mm,
show up. But
mm,
what's so great about what you share and the work that you did is you are now conscious about when it shows up, and
mm,
through that you can approach it differently. Like for
mm,
me, people sharing about their intimate, amazing sex life, I was always irritated by it, right? Because
mm, mm.
I was like, I would joke, I would be like, I have other hobbies, and I would change the subject, right? That
Yes,
was my way
yes.
just to kind of like,
Mm,
not
mm,
be with that.
mm.
Um, and it took something to admit to myself that that was going on,
Yes,
and
yes.
not get angry with myself with it, because first there was shame and embarrassment, like, oh my God, this is going
Mm,
on with me,
mm,
but to be
mm,
loving with it, to
mm,
actually approach it with a loving attention, and then
mm,
say, okay, great, this is what's happening, and now
mm.
what?
Yes,
What do I want to do with that, and who do I want to
yes,
be with this, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It's really difficult thing to love that competitive and
Yeah.
vicious little girl. Like
Yeah. But
she's.
it is powerful to be able to admit it without shaming ourselves, and without
Mm.
making ourselves
Yes,
better or
totally.
smaller. Just
Mm,
owning the fact that sometimes I'm cold, sometimes I can
mm,
be nasty. I can
mm,
also be loving and great, but these are all aspects that if I can own those aspects about myself,
mm,
there is a freedom, and I don't have to
mm.
hide it, because like you said, like the outer image is like greater than what's going on the inside. It's so fake, right?
Yes,
Isn't it how we just
yes,
pretend that everything is
yes,
fine and I'm fine, thank you, but in reality
yes,
something else going on. And
yes,
there is
yes.
something refreshing about when people can be real about themselves and
Mm,
just say, you
mm,
know what? I just
mm.
did I just had some ugly thoughts. I apologize. I'm back. I want to create something else here.
Yes,
Right? That's
yes,
refreshing. You don't often hear
yes,
that. Yeah.
yes, yes. I really agree. That's such a long process and lifetime practice, I guess. Really, how I can be consistent. It's not really about consistent, but it's really more like give myself more space to be myself.
Yeah.
Yes, about
Mm.
who I am and what I want, and really what, almost like what I am.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you ever had experience of trigger other people? Like what I mean by trigger is that I do some action, and that action starts some kind of chain reaction on the other person in a not controllable way, or not very pretty way, maybe more messy, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
other person can blush, or like maybe I didn't see someone yelling at me yet, but
You
I
almost
saw
sound like, I'd like that. You're almost like, I haven't had that yet.
I didn't see that yet.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well,
Yes.
I had it, because I'm quite self-expressed, and I can be, and especially when I started to be more free with who I am, when I got
Mm,
more connected to my expression and my freedom and sensuality, and I would share myself vulnerably, right? I would
mm,
share myself vulnerably, and I had people who come back with nasty responses, right? When
mm,
they say like I'm too loud or I'm too much,
mm,
and I had that. It doesn't
mm,
happen very often anymore, but people will throw their opinions at you,
mm,
and yeah, and that hurts.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
I am in a place now that I can see that their reaction is something that is, they're reacting to their inner response or their inner pain, right? I am
Yes.
displaying something that hurts on their on the
Mm,
inside. Like I could get
mm,
envious about those women who had it successful, so to speak, and I get
mm,
all ugly, right? It's
mm,
not, I wouldn't maybe show it, right? I would be all
mm,
sweet and oh nice, but on the inside I was like,
mm.
right, this ugly, like I hate you kind of a thing. And
Yes.
then when people do that with me, I know, like, because I'm intimately, related to that pattern I have, like they're
Mm,
responding to that inner trigger. But
mm,
it's
mm.
still a challenge to not kind of contract and or be like, all right, I'm too much. Okay, I'll tone down.
Yes. Yes.
It
I
is
want.
every time. It's not easy when somebody tells you, oh, you're
Mm,
too loud and stupid. It's like,
mm,
oh, ow, ooh,
mm,
thank you, I
mm,
guess. Right? Like,
mm,
how do you deal with that?
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm, mm. I want to clarify for people who will watch.
Hmm.
So just for to be clear that what we are talking is the situations like me being myself or
Yeah.
like me being honest to my emotion or my voice or like just something real inside me comes out and then that triggers some other person. It's
Yeah.
not like it's not the situation like I hit someone random on the street and they get triggered. So what we
Bless
are
you.
talking here is very different than what I really actually cause harm to other people. We are not talking about that case.
No.
But what we are talking is that sometimes just a person take lots of space or someone just having lots of things or someone just have their own space can be triggering for some other person. That's what we are really
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
And I think this is really important topic because um, mm, maybe this is some of my activist side, but I feel like woman owning their desire or woman owning their own internal power or sex or hunger is
Mm.
still quite a minority.
Yeah.
And how I feel is like there's a total different system of ethics rather than like Marga said, like, oh, child who asks, he will not get anything kind of moral. This is totally different dynamics and totally different system of ethics. So I really think that's so important for
Mm.
us to speak about our
Yeah.
experiences and share it.
Yeah.
Whoever listens, I think it's really important to keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good, Hannah. It's like in the cliche, right? In the
Mm,
common view of how a woman should be, she's
mm,
not portrayed as this powerful, independent, sensual, sexually
mm,
free woman. You know,
mm,
in the way it's generally looked at, a woman is
mm,
serving.
mm,
Woman is, still, and it differs per culture. So I don't say it as
mm.
this is true for everyone, and it,
Yes.
it changes per culture and
Mm,
country and where
mm,
you grew up. But
mm,
in general, I see that women are more in a role of service and kind of we still have those old beliefs around that what we need is second, right? We care
mm,
for the family, we care for our children, we care for our partners. So there is still a lot of ground to take in
mm,
us even viewing ourselves as equal, so to speak, and
mm,
that
mm,
our needs matters. And it doesn't
mm,
take away that the needs of our partners or
mm,
children don't matter. It's not
mm,
that because we get more, they get less, right?
mm,
Because that's often then the fear when somebody like women start to be more empowered. Suddenly, people are, oh my God, they're too much of taking up everything. No, no,
mm.
no. It
Yeah,
is,
these people needs to go away.
yeah, activist Hana, right? But it's really like, no, no, this is not about others having less. It's about being a
Yeah.
full expression of who we are, a full
Mm,
expression of us women. And
mm,
what we found is that when women are empowered, they're owning their sensuality, they're owning their
mm,
sexuality, they're
mm,
owning that power and their voice.
mm.
Wow, there is so much that we can create and can, and have power with. And
Yes,
that was such
yes.
a, and that's what I'm passionate about, and I hear you as well. Like that's what we're
Mm,
bringing. That's what I'm providing for people
mm,
to find their voice and their
mm,
expression.
mm,
So we
mm.
can create a world that really has people
Yes.
being intimately connected and work really.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Like one of my many mentors and teachers, she said that I don't know, it's just this piece always stays with me. I get easily annoyed about this cultural representation of standard woman in any advertisement is like early 20s, and they kind of look like a little girl and innocent, and we are sure that she erases all the hair in her body, and there is a certain type of smile in the subway screen, and it's just like making very standard woman shape somehow in a very innocent and docile way.
Yeah.
And this is not really about some individual woman who goes through this kind of cosmetics or plastic surgery or removing their hair, whatever they do, they are so free. But it's more cultural conditioning to make women conform at their body level,
Yeah.
and I think also for sexuality. And this is so present everywhere, and 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 I guess the one reason I picked the word taboo
Mm-hmm.
for this conversation is that for me I thought that the taboo is some obstacle like society set to where we end up hitting when we start to follow our senses of our body and what my sex wants and what my sensuality wants and what feels natural when I follow this natural or instinctive way of being. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point, there is some little obstacles I hit.
Yeah. Like
And
what?
for
Can you
me,
give an
that,
example? What kind of obstacle?
oh, there are so many. Uh, I think I can start from from some kind of things implanted in my mind.
Mm.
For example, I about the makeup. For example, like I like putting my lipstick, but I don't really like doing the whole face makeup.
Yeah.
And when I edit videos, little voice inside me says, "Oh, maybe I should have wear the whole makeup,"
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
And it comes like this in the other woman, like they start to follow what feels right in their body, and their body form might change. Like we can be more chubby, or it's natural. We don't really always need to be like standard form, very tight, lean, slim woman. And then some little voice comes in like, oh, people might not like me because I'm a little bit more fat, you
Yeah.
know. And this kind of little voice is really sticking around.
Mm.
This is not really the example of taboo, but this is a little barrier I
Yeah.
hit or little voice I hit. And the bigger taboo I can talk later. But yeah, how is it?
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, those inner conversations, right? That little voice that tells me like, "Oh, you're not pretty enough," or and that compares, right? It compares to the images we
Mm,
see outside or I see outside on news, movies, and it made me think like I'm growing up and now I'm more in this world. I have more role models or women that I
mm,
find like are amazing and powerful and expressing
mm,
themselves. But growing up, we did have those images of women in the kitchen and taking care
mm,
of the family, making sure dinner is ready, right? And
mm,
all.
mm,
And I get your annoyance with it. I get also annoyed when I see those fake models smiling and like, it's like, ugh, it's so fake. And that's what annoys me about it. That it portrays one image, it's not even real, and then indeed the women that grow up think that they need to conform to that like I did, right? I thought my body was wrong. There was something wrong with my body because compared to what I saw around me, it wasn't working the right way. And nobody told me
Really?
there.
Were you? I just cannot imagine. Really?
Right? I know. Like I had a whole transformation, but really, I thought my body was wrong, and I would talk about this thing down here, which is my vagina. I would even say like, this is not working. I'm broken.
Yes.
Right? That's how I
Yes.
related to myself because everything I saw around me was this picture perfect people had always amazing
Mm.
sex and all of that stuff and
Mm.
everything was easy. No, nobody communicated about intimacy or sex or the challenges that come with it. So I grew up like, well, there must be something wrong with me because everybody seems to have it
Yes.
so, right? So
Yes.
that's also
Yes.
then I think a taboo that we're talking about is actually starting to express that is a barrier we have in our societies because it is not standard. The
Mm.
norm is to not speak about it and
Mm.
pretend we're all having it together. The
Mm.
taboo is actually voicing, you know what, I am challenged with this, or I don't like this, or
Mm.
I would love it to have it this way.
Mm.
And that challenges what is already kind of standard there. And
Mm.
then suddenly it's called, oh, this is taboo what she's speaking about, right? Or
Yes. Yes.
practices like
Yes.
erotic practices that are not the standard
Mm.
sex that we see in television.
Mm. Mm.
Suddenly that's a
Yes.
taboo.
When we talk about taboo, there is definitely that matter of perspective,
Yeah,
because like when we talk about our natural desires or our journey for sensuality or our journey of owning my body and my sex and vagina or pussy or whatever people call their genitals,
yeah,
it feels more natural from my side, but taboo is always a side or like point of view from outside.
yeah,
That's something I always think very weird, like this change of perspective. Like when I talk about my pussy, it's just pussy. I mean, like, there's nothing very dramatic about it. It's the genital. I have a sexual genital as a woman. There is nothing really dramatic about that.
yeah,
But each time when I saw on the Facebook, we cannot really write the word pussy or like word sex, and there is this algorithm
yeah,
filtering who is writing what, and the chance of getting banned goes high, and this external mechanism is one way fascinating and the other way is tiresome.
yeah,
I don't really know why I cannot call my pussy pussy. It's so confusing.
yeah. It's like this society has a view on something, right? So the
Mm.
common denominator, like the biggest view, and you can see over the years it's shifting, right? It
Mm.
is kind of more. I do see that conscious sexuality practice become more and more named, or people are talking more about it. You're less weird or strange. I mean, it's
Mm.
still. I mean, if I say what I share with people, what I do,
Yeah.
they still think I'm weird, right? But there's also a more. It seems like people are getting more language to actually talk about it, and it's
Mm.
it's a process that changes over years. So, right now there's a big mass of people who cannot speak about it. So that's the
Yes.
general kind of view of it. And
Mm.
but the algorithms of Facebook are built by people, right? The
Yes.
algorithms that they're constrained by are built by
Mm.
people who have a certain view of
Mm.
this
Mm.
intimacy and
Mm.
relating or sexuality.
Mm.
So
Mm.
once that starts to shift, the
Mm.
algorithm can shift too. So
Mm.
the work that we do is bringing that taboo. I always
Mm.
say like I am making normal what people think isn't normal. In my
Mm.
work, I always want to talk in a normal way about our body. Like you said, my pussy is a pussy. Like you can call it
Yes.
vagina, yoni, whatever you
Mm.
want, but
Mm.
there is no drama around it.
Yeah. It is what
But
it is.
it is what it is, right? And if we are able to just speak about it
Mm.
as it is, that
Mm.
is such a powerful, such a win if we can just be with what it is and
Yes.
whatever it is that we feel, right?
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
that is the challenge, to normalize something that people feel uncomfortable about because it's
Yes.
unknown. People don't
Yes.
know how to talk about it. When I started, my first coach just asked me to say the word cock, right?
Mm.
Because I was so shy, right? I
Yes.
was kind of
Yes.
giggling the whole session, and he said,
Yes.
"Yeah, can you just say the word cock, just to say it?" I was like, I couldn't. I could only
Um,
giggle, right?
wow,
And
I
so we
cannot
kind of,
imagine you. I cannot imagine you like that.
no, it's not out right now,
This
but
is
I
really
kind of
hilarious. I
stammered
can.
the word cock, and I was blushing and sweating, and then and he said like, "Okay, great, well done."
Mm,
And
mm.
I just realized like, wow, whoa, even just saying the word pussy or cock or sex or
Yes.
fucking or oh,
Yes.
can you touch my whatever that I desired, right? It's like
Yes.
just learning to be comfortable with saying those words. That was such
Mm.
a freedom there. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
It is such a freedom, and I get always surprised that this is not granted for everybody.
yeah.
It is so, yeah. I recently talked with a woman. We are talking about orgasmic meditation,
Mm.
and she's fluent in English, and she could not say orgasmic. It's really it's a little
Oh,
bit Freudian, but I think there is that charge in words
yeah.
which works inside the body,
Mm.
and it is fascinating sometimes.
Yeah. It's
Mm,
so funny you say that because in English I'm quite
mm.
free to speak about these things because I
Yes.
learned to talk about. I did lots of courses, but they were often English. I
Mm,
traveled around, so I
mm.
have an English vocabulary that supports my speaking about intimacy and relating. But
Mm.
sometimes when I have to talk about it in Dutch,
Yes,
that shame comes up again, that embarrassment, as if
yes,
I
yes,
have a
yes,
vocabulary of the teenager, the Dutch
yes,
teenager in me, that I kind
yes,
of like need to kind of, oh yeah, go through that uncomfortable space.
yes,
Oh yeah, it feels
totally,
weird
totally.
because I'm not used
Yes.
to it to say it in Dutch.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
it's exactly that.
Yeah, I also need a lot more practice in Korean.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is definitely more triggering in Korean for me too.
Yeah. It's
Mm,
almost like because it goes kind of runs deeper because it's like more that, I grew up speaking the language, so all those beliefs and ideas are
mm,
also kind of connected to the language that I use. So
mm.
that's, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's just a different process again.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Do you have any uh, other experience related to taboo in your journey for sensuality or like or other practices?
Yeah. But the first thing that comes to mind is, I also practice more kink and BDSM.
Mm, mm.
So, and that was something I never imagined I would enjoy because
Wow, okay.
my own idea when I was not doing any of these practices, when somebody would mention SM or kink or
Mm,
BDSM,
mm,
I would just imagine this woman in leather, right, with high
mm,
heels and
mm,
spikes and a whip and just
mm,
yelling,
mm,
denigrating things.
mm,
I had this image that kink was
mm,
just weird, harsh, painful, and awful.
mm,
Unless, until on my journey, I found people who explained to me what it was for them. I
mm,
went to different parties, events, workshops where I discovered kink really is what you say it is.
mm,
So I could totally that context reframed from weird and oh my god, I don't even want to go look at that to
mm.
oh, I'm quite kinky if you would say, right? So yeah, and the taboo there, what I found is just being able to just even say this, that
Mm,
you know, for example, talking about role playing.
mm,
I love role play, but it
mm,
can be really taboo. You can play
mm,
out roles that in day-to-day life you teacher
mm,
student
mm.
relationships, those are
Yes,
taboo, right? Boss
yes,
secretary relationships,
yes,
those are taboo.
yes.
And then but you can play them out in kink.
Mm,
And so
mm.
yeah, and they're just that was for me also kind of grappling with my own discomfort around, oh my god, we're playing a
Yes,
teacher
yeah,
student
yeah,
thing, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh
You're
yeah,
you're playing around your own discomfort
Yeah.
and also the electricity of like going farther
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
to the unknown territory and being more
Yeah.
playful in a very new way.
Yeah.
And I also feel that sometimes around the sexuality and sensuality, when someone says what they speak is, oh, that's so dirty or that's so inappropriate. But when that feels like, oh, that sounds exciting, like when people, this, I'm not generalizing this, but there is some cases like when I think, oh, that sounds really dirty, but I kind of feeling like I want to do that, like,
I know that feeling. It's like something says, interesting, and another voice says, that's so weird. Yeah.
I
So dirty or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I like doing like I like to doing pet play,
What's that?
pet,
Oh,
pet.
pet play. Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
love that too.
yes.
Yeah.
And one piece of my mind, particularly that arrogant one, is like, oh my God, that's so below me, or like, how can
Yeah.
I have so much fun in the pet play? And then other parties like, oh yes, let's do it now.
Yeah.
Is this voices talking inside which creates more electricity, and I think probably I like that more because that voice is so arrogant, so there is more excitement coming from there.
Yeah.
Mm,
And it's so funny. I notice when you're sharing right now, I notice when you share about, pet play and how you love it. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. There is no discomfort whatsoever. And I feel really happy you're sharing this. The moment
mm,
I share about my desires and role play, I feel uncomfortable. And
mm,
I feel vulnerable and exposed because I'm showing a part of myself that might be disapproved of. Right?
mm.
So
Yes,
I just
yes,
noticing that right now in our conversation is like, oh, I have a lot of space for others, their kings and their desires, and but
mm,
then when it comes to mine, I do have to deal every time with that, that little
mm,
voice in my head that says, "Oh, you're weird," or "Don't
yes,
show too much because they might hurt you."
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. That's the way. Um, That's a very important voice, I think. Don't show too much because that might hurt you back.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's for me, there's an inner sensor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I expose myself sexually too much, or how can I say, even talking about the orgasmic meditation this year, and sometimes I feel like I'm exposing myself too much.
Yeah,
Yeah, just for the people who doesn't really know the context, there was a Netflix documentary about the company called One Taste, and the founder of the practice called orgasmic meditation. And even before that documentary, like during last 3 years, when I Google orgasmic meditation, there was a bad media. I don't know if it's I just most easily expressed bad media.
yeah,
So how I felt about the orgasmic meditation was, there was a little bit of censorship in my life. So
yeah,
I felt like, oh, maybe I might have a bad feedback, or like some
yeah,
imaginary fear like that, which made me quite sad actually. Yeah, it was
yeah,
quite sad. I'm not really talking about any factual things of that documentary or what one taste did, etc. It's really about my experience with that practice and my
yeah,
experience with one taste, and especially because it was such a life-changing experience, which means I changed my life in that experience. It's
yeah,
not just rhetoric saying life changing. It did changed my life. That's what I
yeah,
fucking mean. and
yeah,
and that was quite sad. And I experienced that little voice of censorship in my mind for quite a while.
yeah, yeah. And what I found was, and that it's in any topic, any area of my life, when I have that censorship
Mm.
and I suppress myself, it leaves me kind of smaller. But also
Yeah.
my image about my who I am, it leaves me smaller, and that makes me sad because
Mm.
I know I'm not expressing who I am, right?
Mm.
And I don't think, I think there is times and places what is
Mm.
appropriate and not to share. I'm not saying you just need to say everything everywhere every time. I mean,
Mm.
this is not about just blurting
Yeah.
out whatever the hell you want to say, but it is
Mm.
being able to share what's important to us or what we love and
Mm.
and share our heart. When we
Mm.
start
Mm.
closing down our heart, that's really painful,
Yes.
right? When we have
Yes.
that censorship and say like, well,
Mm.
because and that's then really kind of almost almost like a difficult choice. Like if I share myself, I might
Mm.
get criticized. People might have say nasty things to me, and that hurts.
Mm.
But if I
Mm.
shut down and suppress myself and pretend I'm something else, it
Mm.
also hurts because
Yes.
I have suppressed myself and censored myself, which
Mm.
in a sense sometimes feel more awful for me than when
Mm.
others
Mm.
do it,
Mm.
because then I did it
Mm.
myself. So it's
Yes.
this way of learning how to be loving in connection. That's a really a practice I have. It's like to
Mm.
be with what people communicate, be able to hear them, to
Mm.
get their communication and take what works for me and leave
Yes.
out what's not relevant for me. If you have a
Yes.
judgment about
Yes.
me, you call me
Yes.
names.
Mm.
People call
Mm.
me names because
Mm.
I teach conscious sexuality. So
Mm.
yeah, being able to stay connected in that, not shutting myself down, not having to make myself bigger, like that arrogance, right?
Mm.
Oh, I'm better
Mm.
than you.
Mm. Mm.
It's like,
Mm.
all right, this is a human being. They have a certain opinion and experience, and
Mm.
whew, all right, it's uncomfortable when that happens, but
Yes.
my practice is to stay connected in that
Mm. Mm.
rather
Yes.
than having to suppress myself because I know how lonely that is. I know how
Yes.
painful that is.
Yes.
So it's really a
Yes.
choice every time.
Yes. I I really have lots of respect about that piece.
Mm,
That when you say that people call you names because your your work is conscious sexuality
mm,
and and feeling how you accept that almost like a part of job. I think it's a part of job,
yeah,
and I really feel your heart and
yeah,
commitment on that.
yeah. And I
Mm,
think that's exactly that. I
mm,
created for myself a vision that was big enough so I can deal with this. Like
mm,
that my heart can speak, that people
mm,
can speak from their heart, that intimacy can be in the world.
mm,
So that is big for me and
mm,
important enough for me then to face a world where it's not common to have that.
mm, mm, mm. Yes,
But that, yeah,
yes,
it takes something, yeah.
yes, yes. I remember when we are talking to prepare this talk, um, I was sharing like what is really um, disappointing or what I see about around this difficulty of being conscious sexuality teacher in the world and in the world where they many people doesn't really have that much of respect on the sexuality or sensuality or body and pussy or cock. I feel like people cannot really imagine how much of respect and care we really put into this work.
Mm,
And it is also simply, there's not many occasions, there's not many places to experience that much of respect and care around the sexuality. It's always more easily consumed or so vulgarized, or people always perceive the sexuality or sensuality or body or pussy or orgasm or whatever with a lots of shame and
yeah,
lots of fantasies. I don't really think fantasy is bad, but there is just not enough places to experience loving reception around these issues. Yeah, so I really want to say that I feel that in my heart, how much of care you put into your work.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
thank you so much. Mm,
It's my pleasure. And
mm,
and and that I really wish for people, for everybody watching, that
mm,
you find that for yourself, a
mm,
place that you can connect to love, to intimacy, that is
mm,
stronger than that censoring thought in your head,
mm,
and that you find
mm,
places to explore that in a loving way
mm.
and have support in that, because you can't do
Yes.
that alone, really.
Mm,
It's like it's so amazing, Hannah. You're facilitating these conversations. You are part of creating a platform of having this come out of the taboo, out of the shadows, and being able to express and talk about it in a normal way. You don't have to
mm.
shame anything, and then we can say and express how things are for us and what's possible. It's
Yes.
amazing, right? That we can, this is what's possible. We can really
Mm,
talk about it without
mm,
having to have a glass of wine, right?
mm.
Or any other things that you need to do, feel comfortable with it all. It's
Yes.
really
Yes.
possible. Intimacy
Yes.
can be really fun in a conscious way without
Yes.
having to put anything on top of it to kind of
Mm,
make it
mm,
bearable to be with.
mm,
Yeah,
mm, mm. Yeah, I believe in that.
yeah. So
And
thank you,
and
really.
I know and you know that it is much more than possible. And
Yeah, I am exploring this area of my life. I know I haven't discovered so many things. I'm just like, oh, this is a new playground. It's like, what is this year going to bring? Really? It's like, it's such a cool approach to, I create with my partner that every
mm,
year our intimate life will expand. Like, we don't know how yet. We don't have a
mm,
plan per se, right?
mm,
We don't say,
mm,
no, we're not going to take this and this step. Probably
mm,
we'll do maybe a course or we do something that brings in some new perspective, but we
mm.
created that our spark will be alive and we expand how we can be intimate with each other. And it's such
Yes.
a fun game. It's just
Mm.
fun. Why not? And we could play the game of we get bored with each other and after 10 years we have the same sex the whole time, but I had done that game for a while with ex-partners and it wasn't so fun. Right? Let's create a different game. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the infinite game with our partners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we really need to have another topic about the relationship with a partner. I
Yeah.
think there's a
Yeah.
whole another world there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. I think that will be a really, really interesting next topic.
Yes.
Mm,
Cool. We'll do that.
yeah. Thank you so much, Marga. Do you have any words before we close down?
I felt this was such a authentic conversation. I really
Mm,
appreciated your vulnerability and your openness about how processes are for you. And I think
mm,
that's just so great and healing and nourishing. And
mm,
yeah, so thank you for providing a great space and a great conversation. So we could
mm,
explore these topics and share this. And for those watching, like, yeah, I wish you discovered something for yourself in that. Find places where you can be more
mm.
vulnerable and open, or if you already are, amazing. If you're not, not a problem. But that there is
Yes,
something you take away from here that really
yes.
nourishes and empowers you. And
Mm,
that's what we're
mm.
here for, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And that's totally what I wish for those who will watch this
Mm.
video.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we will continue.
Yes.
Mm.
Thank you,
Thank you
Hannah. I'll
so
see you
much.
next time.
Yes, see you next time.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.